Dare great things for Christ. Christ calls us to dare great things. In the marketplace, as well as in the mission field, there has never been a time like the present for the spirit of the Catholic entrepreneur. Now is the time for men and women of great courage and great vision to engage our church and our culture. Now is the time to dare great things. And here is your host as we dare great things, Father Nathan Cromley, the president and founder of the St. John Institute.
Trying to improve our leadership requires a lot from us. It requires study and thought and development of our skills. But sometimes in the midst of all that, we can forget why we're called to lead in the first place. What's God's plan for our leadership? Why would He call us to do what we're doing anyway? Certainly there are many great answers to these questions, but none strike as profoundly as seeing our work as an extension of the work of Christ Himself, an extension of the power of the cross, an extension of salvation for a broken world. Hey everybody, glad to be with you again as we do this seminar together as leaders, trying to understand exactly why we are called to lead to begin with. And this is just so important because, we can get an executive MBA, we could go to seminars on leadership, we can have different coaches come in and different consultants help us, and all that's very important and all, but what is it that's specifically Christian about leadership? It's kind of the point that even though I'm a Catholic priest and this is what I do, I get people that challenge me all the time, kind of like sighing, like, oh, okay, you do leadership work, all right? Therefore, number one, it seems like for a lot of people, they say this is rather insignificant, right, in the big scheme of things. Number two, they don't really believe that it works. And then number three, they say, listen, in the end, this has nothing to do with faith. Now, of course, all three of those attitudes are rather negative, right? And yet they can even affect us. Where in the end, we're just saying, let me just put my head down and get the job done. Whatever I'm supposed to be doing, I'll just do it. It sounds like a great answer, but listen, you're overlooking the fact that every time you do something, you're being guided by a philosophy, a spirit, an ethos that tells you not only what you're doing, but how you're doing it. And what is the ethos that's guiding you when you just put your head down and get the job done? Well, it's going to be an ethos that does not come from the Spirit of God. So it's going to be coming from somewhere else. Who is it that's telling you how you should be leading? What leadership really is? It's almost myopic for us to say, oh, you know what? No, mine is just getting the job done, or mine is just doing my work. No, every time you do anything, you do it in a certain way. And that way, that attitude that you have as you approach that job, it comes from a philosophy, a truth, an understanding of what makes the world tick. So when you say, for example, I'm just here to get my job done, let's just forget all of this reflection about leadership. Well, on the one hand, you could say, okay, this guy is really a practical person. They're really going to win. They're going to be successful. But on the other hand, you just got to ask yourself the question, wait a second, who told you that that was okay? Meaning the spirit that you're taking into that is one of pure efficiency, pure practicality. And in the end, that's going to diminish the value and the meaning of what you do, number one, for yourself, but it could also cause you to have certain characteristics and choices that are not going to really benefit the people that are working for you, to the point where you could be creating a culture and a world that's actually hurting people instead of helping it. So now you're telling me, okay, I'm a leader for whom? Well, for myself, I suppose, right? Or even if you say it's for the company, it's for the company that's paying you, right? There's a detachment that can happen from our hearts with respect to our work. Where really we say what I'm doing is almost like I'm checking in and I'm checking out. And so when I'm there at the work, I check in and I do my work, but I'm not really there. It doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm just making a paycheck. I'm just trying to make the sales grow, etc. Whatever our jobs could be. But I'm saying that's a problem. That's a big problem. Because on the one hand, not only for you to be satisfied as a human person, as a human being, you need to be able to put your heart into your work, your identity into your work. You need to be able to get something out of your work. Even if it's a grind, even if it's something you just got to do because it's the only job available to you, you can still be proud of it, to sign your name on your work, to go into that field saying this is something that I'm excellent at. that I can truly be proud of, okay? That's important for you. But then also it's important for our society, because anytime that we just take a purely practical approach to work, we take a purely materialistic approach to work. And taking a purely materialistic approach to work diminishes the quality of our society, and it allows forces of the economy, which are ultimately materialistic forces, to determine the fate of the family. Sometimes people come in, they say, Father Nathan, why are you working in business leadership? And I say, in order to protect the family. Why? Because we all know it. As the family, of course, is the center and the source of the culture, but it can be shaped, it can be limited, it can be conditioned by the economic forces that are upon it in ways that are so profound, from the ways that we send our kids to school and what they study in school, which are usually focused on engineering, right? And creating leaders for industry. It's not focused on philosophy, that's for sure. We don't send our kids to school, unfortunately. In the average American school, they're not studying philosophy, the meaning of life. No, they're studying mathematics and science. For what? For industry. Well, that means the economy is shaping our school system. If you had a different end goal of the economy, you'd also have a different end goal of education. Well, that's in fact impacting the family, or the decisions that we make to which schools our kids will go. They have to go to college. Why? Well, because you have to get a good job. You see, exactly. So the economy shapes our family life in many, many ways. And so since the church is number one role is the defense of the family and to make the family sanctified, it's very important for us to understand and to work for the way to bring our family values into our workspace, right? And our family values, they're rooted in our faith, right? And if they're not rooted in our faith, they're rooted in some sort of philosophy other than faith. So when I compare them, I simply say, well, what's your philosophy for work? I mean, my philosophy of work is that I've been sent into this job and into this world in the name of Almighty God in order to bring healing, to bring peace, to bring grace. I'm here as a leader, as a service to you, to bring you into a better place in your life. Well, what's your philosophy? Compare that to someone. What is it going to be? It's interesting to listen to them. I'll guarantee this. When you compare the Christian vision for work to any other vision, you're going to notice that the Christian vision is rooted in what is profoundly spiritual. Okay? It's rooted in spirit. It is the most spiritual of things. We're literally saying that when we go into work, we're allowing God to use us as his instrument, and that we are allowing the Holy Spirit to flow through us, through our work, and influence the people that we work with, influence our creation of product, and influence, of course, our customers and the people that we collaborate with in the industry. I mean, everyone that we touch and that touches our company can be indeed influenced by God because we are there. That's quite a stance. I mean, we're literally saying we want to be like leaven in the dough of society. We want to be right there where the action is, where things are being produced, where people are being employed, where decisions are being made that will affect the shape of the world and the shape of our culture. And we want to be there to say and to claim it for God. This is such an incredible position to be in, and such a stance to take. You take any other philosophy and you line it up against that, and you're going to see a huge difference between them all. The Christian position on work is a selfless position, a position of service, a position where leadership goes underneath the people that are led and lifts them up. Other philosophies will be, on the contrary, self-serving, self-exalting, a position where the leader is there in order to lift themselves up, sometimes even at the expense of the customer, of the price, of everything else that's just and right in the world. So it's capital. It's so important that you guys understand this and that you embrace this perspective. To be a leader in the footsteps of Christ means to be an agent of healing in a broken world.
Would you like to hear more from Father Nathan? Join the St. John Leadership Network and receive a 2-minute glance at the gospel every Sunday morning right to your phone. To learn more, go to www.stjohnleadershipnetwork.org/member and join for free today.
When I look at leadership philosophies, I'm always fascinated by the servant leadership model. And it has a lot of history behind it, right, in terms of the actual production of this as a trademarked entity. You know, it's begun in 1970 by Robert Greenleaf, who developed this philosophy and then created into an institute and into a force for the good that's real practical for people, because it translates an understanding that profoundly is evangelical. I'd like to actually do a seminar with you on Greenleaf's philosophy and on servant leadership itself, because it's a fascinating concept, and it intercepts and interlinks with what Jesus Christ himself tells us when he says that, as I, who am your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, so you too must wash each other's feet. The one who would be in charge of you all must be the servant of the rest. He literally says that. If you're given a position of leadership, it's in order to wash the feet of the people who follow you. And this philosophy of leadership has been very successful. I mean, it's helped a lot. It's been a good thing in the world. But why does it work? What is the problem that this philosophy is addressing? It's going to be the same problem that the gospel itself is addressing. That our world is not the way that it should be. That our world is in need. Okay, so the idea that we are self-sufficient entities and that everything that we do just turns out golden, right, is not true. Empirically and experientially, we see that this isn't the case. That in fact, every day that we go into work to face problems. I like to think of it this way, that the problems are actually a leader's playing field. Like, where do I exert my leadership? Why do I need to have a leader to begin with? You know, why do we have to have a president? Why do we have to have a CEO? Why do we have to have a manager? Why do I, as an entrepreneur, why do I have to be at the head of my company? Right? And the answer is because we are agents of change, and we're dealing with situations that could be better. Right? So when I say it's a broken world, it's because in many situations, it's not just a matter of improvement. It's a matter of fixing things that really should be otherwise. I mean, from the time you come in to the office, from the time you get to wherever we are going to fix things that are broken, right? So profoundly, we can look at these at all kinds of different levels and describe all the different ways things can be fixed, right? So you have your healthcare, your healing industries, fixing the mind, fixing relationships, right? And then fixing the body. Then you've got, of course, like things like when you're working in construction work and you're fixing broken pipes and fixing electrical lines. And I mean, we can go through all those different categories of business and enterprise and look at them as fixing things. But I want to try to get to the root of it. Meaning, that's one thing to say that business leadership or leadership in general is there as a service to humanity, right? To make the world better. That's already a good step. I want to take it even a step further with you and say, what's the problem that God sees? Right? Because of course, all those problems God sees. Every problem is important, and that's why we're here and our industries are important. But there's something even greater at work. There's a deeper purpose to why God's got you involved and me involved, and why we are called where we are to exert his influence. What does his influence do? Well, his influence, of course, heals. Heals what? It heals 3 wounds in us that the Bible teaches us. 3 effects that come into our lives because of sin. We read it right in the Bible. Okay, it says in 1 John chapter 2, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. Now, of course, you got to understand this. Whenever he says the world, he doesn't mean it like most of us mean it today. It's literally a theological term that refers to the state of society, the state of ourselves, the state of any human person outside of God, and the state of a culture without God's grace. So the world, as spoken of here in the Bible, is the state of affairs, right, in our human endeavors, in our human relationships, when we are not living according to God's grace. And it's profound because it's showing that if you're not living according to God, the commands of God's grace and the beautiful power of God's grace in you, you are living according to something. You're living according to whatever is fashionable or accepted according to the human standards of living of those who are around you. And so the Bible refers to that as the world. Well, 1 John 2 literally says that in the world, what's dominating that worldview? 3 words. First, the desire of the flesh. Second, the desire of the eyes. And then thirdly, the pride of life. Well, our church's history has developed this and tried to understand this. We call it the threefold concupiscence. And it's really profound because it's true. It's like you can experience this, right? That when we don't live according to the Spirit of God, 3 things are going to dominate our experience and lead us instead. Number 1, the desires of the flesh. Well, that's kind of obvious, everything that can entail, right? The disordinate passions for things that are easy. Things that are easy and things that are pleasant and things that are for us, that we can indulge ourselves in. The desires of the flesh, think of the wages of alcoholism and how much devastation that has brought to so many people's lives, or drug addiction, okay, or all kinds of different types of addictions in our life, even shopping, which can become really an expression of greed and avarice in so many different forms. We just can't say no to buying the next things for ourselves. And you say, why? You end up having to sell off all of the clothes that are in your closet because you can't possibly even wear them just to buy more. Right? That's an example, right? The desires of the flesh are things that are gratifying, that are pleasant, that are easy. And if we don't have something higher to live for, that will end up being something that dominates our existence and causes leaders to not lead in freedom from the soul, but instead to lead, from the desires even of our craven selves. And this is just would be such a travesty, right? And yet we all have examples in leadership where we look at that and we say, yeah. In the end, the desire for money, isn't that what it is? The greed that can really infect so much of our leadership, so much of the people that are around us. What more is it except the desires of the flesh? So there's the Bible putting his finger on there saying, look, if we don't lead out of freedom, if we don't bring God into this world, we will end up with a world where people are driven by this craven desire, this slavish lust for the things of the flesh. And man, we were made for so much more. Who's going to bring that so much more into our world? Well, the Bible's literally saying, if it's not from God and if it's not coming from Christ, well, odds are it's not going to happen. And so who's God going to use to make sure that our world doesn't fall into that type of ethos, that type of philosophy, that domination? He's going to use you. Right? That's the beauty of Christian leadership. We're here to lead a broken world upward.
Would you like to start your Thursday mornings with a scriptural leadership lesson? Join the St. John Leadership Network, where Father Nathan hosts a 30-minute call at 6:30 a.m. in all 4 U.S. time zones. To learn more, go to www.stjohnleadershipnetwork.org/member and join for free today.
So when we read in the Bible in 1 John chapter 2 about the 3 concupiscences, right? The desires of the flesh, the desire of the eyes, the pride of life. We're reading a description of the human heart outside of the saving grace of Jesus Christ, right? And so then when we read the description of the human heart in Jesus Christ, well, we read about nobility and virtue and holiness and love that is like the love of God. And you say, well, who's going to bring that heart, the heart of the redeeming value of Jesus Christ, into our society? And that's, of course, you. The vocation of the lay person, of the non-ordained person, is to bring the leaven of God's holiness into the heart and the fabric of our society, right? You are part and parcel of the world, but you are not of the world. Those who are of the world are dominated by the lust of the flesh, right? The desires for self-gratification. And they're the desires of the eyes and the pride of life. Well, we talked already about the self-gratification piece. What is this desire of the eyes? Oh my goodness. It is so profound in us. This is what tradition has always interpreted and understood as referring to vanity. Now, usually when we think of vanity, we think of, people in front of the mirror on the wall, right? Saying, who is the fairest of them all? That type of thing. But it's more than that. The desire of the eyes is the desire to appear in the eyes of others as being a success, okay? As being better, as being wonderful. That everyone around you know the goodness that is inside of you. This is a little bit trickier. It's the desires of the flesh. That's kind of obvious. The desire of the eyes, it's a little bit more nuanced, isn't it? Because you can appear, in fact, to be good. It's just that underneath that is a desire that's not good. Because the desire that's not good is to say that your opinion of me is what will shape my opinion of myself. Okay? Because that's what I need you for. When I'm vain, I'm seeking after glory, the glory of the earth. And Aristotle, very interesting, 400 years before Jesus Christ, literally said that the desire for glory is the highest desire of materiality that we can have. So if you were going to say, look, what's going to grip us in a really profound way if we're not living according to the Holy Spirit, we're going to be gripped by this desire for glory, for recognition, for power in the end. The desire of the eyes, it's for us to appear in the eyes of others and for ourselves to see the effect of our lives. But it still is material. And this isn't necessarily always a bad thing. It's a bad thing when it's the end goal, right? So if we translate that into our businesses, I mean, the rapaciousness of the competitive spirit in our cultures, or the absolute domination that we can exert over other people, over other ideas, sometimes that are good ideas, just in order to be seen as having the most, as being the best. The desire, the craven desire that we have to be recognized by those who are above us, which can lead us to live false lives. I mean, a total lack of authenticity is the result of a life dedicated to vanity. And yet we'll dedicate. And who's going to stop that? I mean, think about the social media frenzy and what this has done to our families. As our kids grow up not thinking that they're beautiful or not thinking that they're good because they don't have enough likes by their peers and their social media platforms, right? It's like, well, guys, I mean, social media is a fine thing if it's an expression of authenticity and values that are greater than it. But vanity, what vanity does is it makes the expression the number one value. So it doesn't really matter what you have. If you can fake it, then you've won the game. And of course, this is like disastrous to the human person. But who is going to solve that? This is where your leadership is so necessary. Just like when we face the desires of the flesh, the Christian leader is there to point us towards something even more important than self-gratification. Good products, good services, the nobility of the soul, the quality of our relationships in the workplace, my leadership as a service for your good, and to build you up as a leader of the family. It's like I always say, the purpose of our business leadership is so that the leaders of the families that work for us have an environment that allows them to develop themselves to be better leaders of the family at home. You want to say, what's the point of having a Christian culture in your workspace? It's that. It's so that for the 10 hours a day that our people are dedicated to being around us, they're made better people for when they go home. We can heal the family if we heal the workplace. We can heal the society if we heal the workplace. Well, that comes by leaders like you who are literally saying, I'm going to embody that higher thing. I'm going to make sure that higher goal, the excellence of the human soul is present in our workspace. Okay. And that's in the daily decisions that you have to make. Well, the second way you can say, I'm going to make sure that people understand the rewards of authenticity. Right? And we're not going to allow the competitive environment, which can be good in many ways, but we're not going to allow that to determine how we define success. Okay? Well, that's a big step. It's a big step to say that, but that's why you're here. And if you don't say it, oh my goodness, what kind of world will we have if everyone in it determines their level of value by the favor that they can curry from others? Of course, this is just the second. The third is the pride of life. That's the most profound. So you have sensuality, you've got vanity, and then you've got pride. Pride, briefly put, is to say that we are enough without God, that we are the be-all and end-all of existence, that our own self is the goal. And one of the ways that this is portrayed to us is just to ask what our profound motivation is in our leadership. And this is why Christ is so important and your faith is so important in your leadership. Because any achievement in the world is done for a reason. Is it done in order to make others better as a service, or is it done to exalt ourselves? And sometimes you can say, well, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Yep, it's always going to be a little bit of a mixed bag. But the goal of our life is to say that myself is found in my service. And that my love, the love that motivates me and drives me forward, this is my wealth. That there's nothing greater in my life that I could have, nothing greater that I can achieve in my life than what I give away. It's like that movie that's so famous in our culture, right? It's A Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. If you haven't seen that lately, go back and watch it again. It's a story of a man who struggles with pride and chooses consistently to do the better thing, to make a life of love be his guide. But it's hard for him because he keeps thinking he's missing out in life. And he does. He misses out on a lot of things in life. But he doesn't always see what he's gained for what he's missed. And in the movie, he's shown what he's gained. An angel comes and then shows him the world, what it would look like if he hadn't lived that way. And of course, it's a terrible scene of selfishness and greed and domination. But because he was there and because he lived that way and he fought against his pride and he served other people and he let love really be his guide, well, the movie ends with this wonderful scene where all of the people that he has helped over his life comes back and help him at his moment of need. And there's a line that finishes the movie, "No man is poor who has true friends." I just love that film because it speaks to us about what we are all about and why we are called to lead in the footsteps of Christ. We are called to bring light into darkness, warmth into the cold, leaven into the dough, salt into the meat of this world. God wants to do so much through you. The God who made the world without you won't redeem it without you. So let's therefore be at his service and see what we have to do today as an incredible opportunity to bring God's love really into a world that needs it.
Dare great things for Christ.
Share your feedback with Father Nathan. Send us an email at communications@stjohninstitute.org. That's communications@stjohninstitute.org. And visit www.stjohninstitute.org and sign up for our newsletter to receive updates from Father Nathan.